Okay, so this was not an album I was expecting to see this year, but here we are. I've been somewhat of a fan of the MC5 for a few months now, and I started to get into their work, unfortunately, after drummer Dennis Thompson died, and when they are announced to be inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, which it's about damn time. Countless bands these guys have influenced is literally insane. You know, it is an understatement to say that the MC5 are one of the most influential groups of all time. I mean, they basically invented punk rock along with the Stooges, fusing the sounds of early rock and roll with blues, garage rock, free jazz, and a little bit of Motown. Their 1969 live debut, Kick Out the Jams, was a bold statement that was louder, heavier, and more boundary-pushing than anything else at the time. The decision to record this live was one of the best decisions made in music history, as the raw energy they presented could simply not be captured in the studio. With this album, they started a movement of kids plugging in, forming bands, rehearsing in garages, and yelling lyrics about social and political problems while playing loud and fast. Almost every punk band and most heavy metal bands owe a massive debt to the MC5, as these guys paved the way for noise and extremity in music that pissed off parents of the day, and they've influenced so many of my favorite bands. The MC5 entered the studio in the early 70s to record the albums Back in the USA, released in 1970, and High Time, released in 1971. Both albums were good, but unfortunately they didn't capture the energy they had to the same degree as Kick Out the Jams did. And after both albums failed to do anything for the MC5 commercially, they broke up. They reformed a couple of times over the years, but then all the members started to die off, and by 2012, the guitarist Wayne Kramer and drummer Dennis Thompson were the only original members left. In 2022, however, Wayne Kramer announced an MC5 reunion that would consist of a tour and, most importantly, a brand new MC5 album, it being their first in over 50 years. Before that could happen, unfortunately, Wayne Kramer passed away of pancreatic cancer of February of this year. This effectively ended the band, and speculations about a new album were thrown into doubt. Then the band was dealt another blow when drummer Dennis Thompson, the last remaining original member of the band, died back in May, leaving no original members of the MC5 left. And then the new album, Heavy Lifting, was announced, set for release on October 18th, and as I'm filming this, that was yesterday. Okay, so enough talk of their history and influence. How is the actual album? Well, it's actually very solid and a definitive final statement for the band, as it's basically Wayne Kramer's last will and testament. The title track opens off the album, and while I wouldn't say the MC5 pick up right exactly where they left off with this one, there's definitely a lot of energy present here. Wayne Kramer said pre-release this would be a very guitar-driven album, and in that aspect, it absolutely delivered. Within the first 30 seconds, the band is quite literally kicking out the jams again. It definitely has its somewhat like funk metal crunch, which, I mean, makes sense as Tom Morello features on it. The band keeps up the energy for Barbarians at the Gate, definitely one of the best and most guitar-centric songs on the album. Now with this album, it's interesting to like hear the MC5 with like such modern production standards. I mean, because like the production we're used to from them is like very raw and of its time, which, I mean, it helped give it like that raw like proto-punk sound and helped like define that genre. And so it's just kind of like interesting to hear like all these like modern production techniques. Like the drums here sound like very like clean and like less like tinny compared to like other records, like very like kind of more on the heavier side. And then like, yeah, the guitars, I mean, even the bass is like nice and sharp and clear, and the vocals are well done. Again, like I said, it's very cleaned up compared to those previous records and done with esteemed producer Bob Ezrin. Now, the most interesting thing about the record, and I'm not sure if this is exactly a good or bad thing, but while the MC5 definitely revived their original sound here, it seems like here they also kind of become a product of the bands they've influenced. And this is probably a result of the fact that the album features a wide variety of guest musicians, many of whom were influenced by the band themselves. The album features, we have Tom Morello, William Duvall of Alice in Chains, Slash, Dennis Thompson. He doesn't play on every song on the album, he's their former drummer, but he guests on a couple of songs. Vernon Reid of Living Colour, Joe Barry of Save Ferris. It has quite a bit of like collaborations and stuff, and I think like kind of like it would make sense for like the MC5 to do this because like all the original members are gone now, and they're basically just kind of like, this feels more like not as much like an MC5 album and more like just like a project of like multiple musicians like getting together to like make like one final album under the MC5 name. The album is filled with great songs and definitely feels like they're trying to be somewhat like more modern, which is fine, of course. They do incorporate like some heavy metal elements into the albums, like on tracks like Black Boots, 25 Miles, Blind Eye, like ever so slightly. Maybe it's not like, they're not like fully heavy metal songs, but they have like some heavier guitar parts and solos and stuff. But the album also messes around with some blues and Motown that influenced them to begin with, such as Can't Be Found, as well as the closing track Hit It Hard, which features a horn section and some backup singers. Change, No Change, that track is somewhat like reminiscent of Let Me Try from back in the USA. And Because of Your Car sounds like it could have fit nicely on that record as well, with its like stripped back guitar tone. The band even flirts with industrial and like electronica a little bit on the track Blessed Release, which is the penultimate track, which I was not expecting. It has like programmed beats and like a little bit of synth in there. Like I was not expecting that whatsoever. That was honestly like the biggest curveball that this record threw me. And The Edge of the Switchblade is like a somewhat ballad with a trademark strutty solo from Slash himself and William Duvall, like I mentioned, of Alice in Chains, doing guest vocals here. And of course, there's songs reminiscent of their proto-punk sound they pioneered, particularly Boys Who Play With Matches and I Am the Fun, the Phony. So this album was a massive project, and this was the result of musicians coming together to just make a great rock and roll record. I'm feeling a pretty positive 92 on this one. Only thing I would say is that it doesn't exactly feel like a proper MC5 record, as the dueling guitar solos of Wayne Kramer and Fred Sonic Smith are lacking here, as well as the like super riotous like political messages of singer Rob Tyner. Although, I mean, there is some similar like lyrics here. Overall, I would just say like it doesn't like capture like just the rawness and like the pure energy of just like this pure sound of like kids playing in their garage and stuff. It definitely feels more like a supergroup project that multiple musicians got together to make just branded under the MC5 name, which I said earlier. But again, this is only comparing it to past records, and like I said, on its own, it's a solid final statement for a band that spearheaded musical movements, and it's just a great record in general. Check this out. I mean, if you're an MC5 fan, obviously check this out. This will be their final record, of course, because rest in peace to Wayne Kramer, Dennis Thompson, and all the other members of the MC5. Made some great music, but this is the final MC5 record, and this is the only time, for most people, like this will be the only time in their lifetimes they'll ever like see like a new MC5 album. So definitely check this out while you can. I've not seen like too much coverage on it, but yeah, again, just it's a good record, even if it's not like nearly as good as the past records. I would still recommend it. So great new record out this weekend, and yeah, I hope to see you guys in the next album review or video I do. I'm planning to do a review of Tarantula Heart, that new album by the Melvins that came out in April that I've been wanting to cover for quite some time now. So hope you all enjoyed, and I will see you all later. Bye.